Welcome to the world of sci-fi story, and don't forget the like and subscribe the channel. Human, I demand you take responsibility. You made me addicted to you. Max Thompson's head was pounding. His mouth tasted like he'd swallowed a sock, and something was definitely wrong with his bed. It felt warmer than usual, and it smelled weirdly pleasant, like citrus and lavender. He peeled open one eye and immediately regretted it. The sunlight was brutal, stabbing into his brain like a laser. That's when he heard the voice. "Human, you're finally awake." Max bolted upright, instantly regretting it as his head throbbed. Standing at the foot of his bed was the most stunning woman he'd ever seen. Curly, golden hair cascaded down her shoulders, framing a face so flawless it could have been airbrushed. She wore his bedsheet like a toga, her posture regal and unbothered. But it wasn't her beauty that had his jaw hanging open. It was her skin. It was silver, like actually silver, not tanned, not pale, but shimmering, metallic silver. What? Who? How? Max's brain couldn't seem to complete a sentence. The woman crossed her arms, looking both annoyed and faintly amused. Typical human male. So simple-minded. She leaned in closer, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "Do you even remember what you did to me?" Max's heart skipped a beat. "What I did to you? Look, lady, I don't even remember last night. I barely remember my own name right now." She rolled her eyes. "Of course you don't. I should have known better than to indulge in your primitive earth beverages. But that's not the point." Her eyes narrowed. "You made me addicted to you." Max blinked. "Excuse me." She sighed dramatically, tossing her curls over her shoulder. "My name is Ziria, diplomat of Valoria. And you, Max Thompson, are responsible for an international incident." Max's mind was reeling. "Wait, how do you know my name?" Ziria scoffed. "You," yelled it several times. His face went beet red. "Oh, yes, oh," she said, tapping her foot impatiently. "You see, Valorians are biochemically sensitive to certain stimuli. Apparently, human intimacy triggers a rather potent addiction." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "I crave you, Max. Constantly. It's infuriating." Max's mouth went dry. "You crave me?" "Yes. I can't concentrate. I can't sleep. And if my bodyguards find out, it could ruin my diplomatic mission." She was pacing now, her silver skin shimmering under the sunlight. "I demand you take responsibility." Max ran a hand through his messy hair. "Responsibility? How? What do you expect me to do?" She stopped pacing and looked at him, as if he were the dumbest creature she'd ever encountered, which, considering she was an alien, might actually be true. "You're going to help me manage these cravings until they pass. That means I'll need regular exposure to you." Her cheeks tinted a faint pink. "Until my biochemistry normalizes." Max's jaw dropped. "Regular exposure? Like dates?" She looked horrified. "No, not dates. I'm not courting you, human. I just need physical contact." Max's brain short-circuited. Was he actually being propositioned by an alien woman he apparently got addicted to him? Was this real life? This is insane. Ziria shrugged, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "Perhaps, but if you don't help me, I'll be forced to explain my condition to my superiors. And when they find out it's your fault, Earth's first contact with Valoria might end in a diplomatic scandal." Max swallowed hard. "You're blackmailing me." Her eyes sparkled. "Oh, absolutely." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a purr. "And you're going to comply, because I always get what I want." Max's heart hammered in his chest. He was definitely in trouble. Max's attempt at returning to normal life lasted all of 12 hours, Just as he began to convince himself that the silver-skinned woman in his apartment was some sort of fevered dream, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Human, I am outside your place of work. Your presence is required immediately. Ziria." Max's stomach dropped. He peeked out the window of his office, half expecting to see a spaceship hovering above the parking lot. Instead, he saw her, a shimmering silver goddess standing impatiently on the sidewalk, attracting a growing crowd of gawkers. Max ran out of his office so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. When he reached her, Ziria crossed her arms, her golden eyes blazing. "You're late. What are you doing here?" Max hissed, desperately trying to herd her away from the curious onlookers. "You can't just show up like this." She blinked, genuinely confused. "Why not? I require exposure to you. The cravings have been intolerable." Max's face went bright red. "Keep your voice down." Ziria tilted her head. "Why? Are you ashamed of your actions?" She looked around at the humans, gawking at her. "Your species is so strange." Max could feel a migraine coming on. "Look, can we not do this here? I'll meet you later, okay? Somewhere less public." She scrutinized him for a moment before nodding. "Fine. I will rendezvous at your residence at sundown. Be prepared." She spun on her heel and sauntered away, leaving Max to explain to his coworkers why a silver-skinned supermodel was looking for him. Later that evening, Max paced nervously in his apartment, checking the clock every few seconds. What was he even supposed to do? Was he supposed to cook dinner? Did aliens eat dinner? Did they eat at all? His spiraling thoughts were interrupted by a knock at his door. Max opened it to find Ziria standing there, wearing human clothes. Well, almost. She had somehow interpreted casual Earth attire to mean a neon pink tracksuit. With heels, she looked oddly proud of herself. "I researched your human courting rituals," she announced, walking in without invitation. "I read that gifts and nourishment are expected." She held out a bag labeled Space Meniart in bold, glowing letters. Inside was a bottle of alien wine and what appeared to be a live, wriggling tentacle. Max recoiled. "Oh, thanks." Ziria looked at him expectantly. "Well, aren't you going to prepare it?" Max stared at the tentacle, which was trying to crawl out of the bag. "Yeah, I don't know how to cook this." Ziria looked horrified. "You mean to tell me you don't know how to prepare basic flornix? Meat. How do you survive on this planet?" "Pizza," Max answered weakly. "Lots of pizza." Ziria's eyes widened. "Is that the dish made of flattened dough and fermented curds? I've heard it's highly addictive. No wonder your species is so primitive." Max pinched the bridge of his nose. "Can we focus here? You said you needed exposure to me. So, how does this work? We just hang out." Ziria's cheeks tinted a faint pink. "Hanging out? Yes, that's what the human guide recommended. Activities that involve proximity and physical touch." She cleared her throat. "Your species is annoyingly imprecise with language." Max's heart skipped a beat. Physical touch. Yes. She sat down on his couch, patting the space next to her. "Begin the touching. I require relief." Max hesitated, then sat awkwardly beside her, his heart racing. He reached out and gently touched her shoulder. Her skin was cool and smooth, like silk-wrapped metal. The contact sent a shiver through her, and she leaned into him, sighing with relief. That actually helps?" he asked, fascinated. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes half-lidded. "Your species is primitive, but surprisingly effective." Max's cheeks burned. "Thanks, I think." She stayed pressed against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Max's heart raced, his mind spinning with questions. Who would have thought that human touch could have this kind of effect on an alien? And more importantly, Why was he starting to enjoy this? As Ziria relaxed against him, a contented smile playing on her lips, Max couldn't help but wonder if he was in way over his head. Max was beginning to realize that Ziria's definition of exposure was a lot more complicated than he'd anticipated. Over the next few days, she became a constant presence in his life. She showed up at his apartment unannounced, critiqued his wardrobe. Why do you have so many flannel shirts? Are you preparing for battle? And insisted on experimenting with various forms of human contact. At first, it was innocent enough, holding hands, hugging, resting her head on his shoulder while they watched TV. But the more time they spent together, the more intense her cravings became. One evening, they were on his couch watching an alien documentary she insisted would expand his feeble human mind. Max was struggling to understand the plot. Something about sentient plants overthrowing their gardeners. When Ziria shifted closer, her thigh pressing against his, Max's heart did a backflip. Ziria, you're kind of in my space. She looked at him, her golden eyes shimmering. I require more contact. The cravings are intensifying. Max swallowed hard. Yeah, about that. How long do these cravings usually last? Ziria's cheeks turned a faint pink. They vary. It depends on the strength of the initial stimulus. Max frowned. So, what exactly did I do to you? Her eyes narrowed. You really don't remember. He rubbed the back of his neck. I was pretty drunk that night. It's all kind of a blur. Ziria hesitated, her cheeks darkening. You touched me. Everywhere. Repeatedly. With enthusiasm. Max's face turned bright red. Oh, Ziria looked away, her expression a mix of embarrassment and longing. Valorian physiology is sensitive. Once exposed to a potent source of pleasure, it develops a craving for it. And you, Max Thompson, are that source. Max's heart pounded. Wait, you mean you're addicted to me? She looked at him, her eyes smoldering. Yes, and the cravings are becoming unbearable. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I require more than just touch now. Max's breath caught. You mean you want to? Ziria didn't answer. She simply moved closer, her lips brushing his as her fingers tangled in his hair. Her skin was cool against his, but her touch was electric, sending a jolt through his body. Max's mind went blank as she kissed him, her mouth soft and sweet. He responded instinctively, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. She melted against him, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Then, just as suddenly, she pulled back, her eyes wide with panic. No, I mustn't. This is making it worse. She jumped to her feet, hugging herself. I need to leave. Max blinked, still dazed. Wait, what? Why? Ziria's expression was pained. The more I indulge, the stronger the addiction becomes. If I lose control, I could be bound to you permanently. That would destroy my career, my life. Max stood up, his heart sinking. Ziria, I didn't mean to. I didn't know. She shook her head, her curls bouncing. I should never have come here. This was a mistake. Her voice wavered. I can't see you again, Max. It's the only way to break the addiction. Max felt a sharp pain in his chest. You're just leaving. Tears shimmered in her golden eyes. I must. Goodbye, Max. Before he could respond, she turned and bolted out the door, leaving him standing alone in his apartment, his heart aching and his mind spinning. Max sank back onto the couch, his body still tingling from her touch. She was gone, but the feeling of her lips on his lingered, haunting him. He was hopelessly addicted to. Max spent the next 3 days in a daze. Everything reminded him of Ziria. The lingering scent of her exotic perfume on his couch, the neon pink tracksuit she'd left behind, even his phone, which stubbornly refused to light up with another one of her demanding texts. He tried to go back to his routine, but his heart wasn't in it. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the golden eyes filled with longing and fear, the way her lips trembled. When she'd said goodbye, it was driving him crazy. On the fourth day, Max snapped. If she wouldn't come to him, then he'd go to her. Luckily, he still had her number. "We need to talk. I'm not letting you disappear on me." There was no reply. He tried again. "Ziria, please, I just want to see you one more time." A few minutes later, his phone buzzed. "Meet me at the observation deck. 1 hour." Max arrived early, his heart pounding as he looked out over the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. It was beautiful, but all he could think about was her. He heard the soft hum of her hover boots. Before he saw her, Ziria appeared beside him, her silver skin shimmering in the golden light. She looked tired, her shoulders slumped, but her eyes were as mesmerizing as ever. Max took a deep breath. "You didn't have to leave." Ziria looked away. "Yes, I did. The more I'm around you, the stronger the cravings get. If I indulge again, I'll never be able to stop." Max's chest tightened. "Then, what about me? You think I can just forget about you?" She turned to him, pain flickering across her face. "You're human. You'll move on." Max's hands clenched. "You don't get it, do you? I'm addicted too. I can't stop thinking about you, Ziria. I don't want to."